Sandy's Blasting Bronco is an Intamin prototype vertical LSM coaster at the American Dream Mall's Nickelodeon Universe Indoor Amusement Park. I have made several videos on Nickelodeon Universe, including ride reviews, park vlogs, conspiracy and prediction videos, etc. While Sandy's Blasting Bronco was closed for an extended period of time in the early months of 2022 and had no sign of reopening anytime soon, I had made a video talking about why it is closed and if and when it will ever reopen back up again. That video has since been taken down due to misinformation. In that same video, I also mentioned how I thought that there was a very likely chance that Sandy's will never reopen again. But as you can see, I was definitely wrong about that assumption. Being that Sandy's Blasting Bronco is a prototype of Intamin's vertical LSM coaster model, it is bound to have some technical issues of some sort. But ever since Sandy's had opened, it's been plagued with mechanical issues and extended periods of downtime. The ride sends riders forwards while traversing a circuit of a bunch of twists, turns, and inversions. And then when the train comes back to the station, there's a turntable that turns the train around and then launches it backwards. Riders then repeat the entire layout backwards. It is a very unique ride model, so it's bound to have a lot of technical issues. When Nickelodeon Universe first opened in October of 2019, every ride there was up and ready to go. There were multiple rides closed at a time, and multiple rides testing but not open to the public, but their status was that they were officially in operation. The one exception to this was Sandy's Blasting Bronco. The ride sat there dormant from October of 2019 all the way until March 2020, when the entire mall had to shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. When the mall finally opened back up in October of 2020, Sandy's Blasting Bronco opened with the park on its opening day. The ride was seeming to run reliably and smoothly during that period of time. Of course, there were still days where it was closed due to technical issues, but it was still open for the majority of the time. Then when September of 2021 came around, Sandy's Blasting Bronco was scheduled by the state to close for annual maintenance. That annual maintenance period turned into 8 months of the ride sitting there dormant and having no sign of reopening anytime soon. During multiple of my visits, the trains were taken apart completely and did not have the seat padding on it. I've heard multiple rumors as to why it ended up being closed for that long, but I still to this day have no idea why that is. There is no use in speculating, as I will only spread more and more misinformation while doing so. After sitting there not showing any signs of reopening, Sandy's finally reopened on Memorial Day weekend. Just a few days after that, I made sure to head over there and try out the ride. Because Nickelodeon Universe is always so empty, the ride was a walk-on all day, despite the fact that I went on Memorial Day. I also went on Friday later that week, and it was even more empty than on that Monday. So I have already done Sandy's at least over 30 times, so I should have a pretty good feel for what sensations this ride delivers in each part of the ride. Although the ride has been open since, it has had several days of it being closed for technical issues, even after it opened back up this year. But I really don't blame them, because Sandy's just came out of an 8-month coma, and will take a while to start running more consistently. I hope that Nickelodeon Universe will eventually be able to figure out those technical difficulties, and be able to have Sandy's available in the upcoming months. I'm going to do what I usually do in my reviews, by reviewing each part of the ride, and describing what sensations are felt during that part of the ride. This ride blew away my expectations. It has a very small layout, but don't let the size of this ride fool you. It's sure set in a small footprint, but it packs so many different forces into that one footprint. I unequivocally prefer this to Shellraiser in the same park, just because the elements feel so much more fun and punchier. Let's get started. Something I want to start off by mentioning is the launch. Although the acceleration may not be anything special on paper, I think the launch is fantastic. It is by far one of my favorite launches out there. I even prefer this launch to TMNT Shellraiser's launch in the same park. Shellraiser's launch is a lot more forceful and much more powerful than Sandy's, so it instantly pushes your head back against the seat all at once, and it's really hard to feel any sense of acceleration because you are pushed back against the seat all at the same time. But since Sandy's acceleration is more gradual, it's a lot easier to appreciate the punch that comes with this launch. I can even recall one time when this launch actually dropped my stomach. I only usually get the stomach dropping feeling on traditional drops, but this is the first time I actually got one on a launch. The pre-recorded spiel that plays right as the train is about to launch adds such an excitement factor to the ride. The spiel sounds like this.
It's time to ride, y'all. Keep your head back, hold on tighter than bark on a tree, and say, yee-haw!
If the operator gets the timing right, then you will launch right as it says, yee-haw, and it's really not hard to feel the force of this launch. It's not much I can describe in words. It just feels like you're being forcefully pushed back against your seat. It does feel somewhat gradual, but that actually makes it easier to appreciate the power of this launch. This launch definitely shines in the front row, because you start rising up into the Immelman at a lot faster speeds than in the back, because the back end of the train hasn't gotten time to catch up yet. In the back row, you start to slow down as the train ascends up the Immelman. Since the front row takes this element at a lot faster of a speed, then you will feel a lot stronger positive G's going up this element in the front. These are some of the best positive G's out there if you ask me. If you are sitting in the back though, you will slow down as you ascend up the Immelman, but you will get more whip as the train exits the Immelman and goes into the tight valley. In the front, you won't get as much whip going down the Immelman, but you will get fantastic, sustained floater airtime as the train nearly stalls at the top of the Immelman. In the front row, you will also get stronger positive G's at the bottom of this tight valley. This valley is so tight, and also delivers some of the best positive G's out there. Now, before I continue describing each element, I would like to address the elephant in the room, the smoothness, or lack thereof. This ride does feature a pretty strong rattle, which is also able to be heard on and off the ride. Keyword, rattle. This ride is not rough whatsoever, and does not have any shaking or jackhammering, even to the slightest, but you can feel the train vibrate and rattle a bit throughout the course of the ride, especially during the tight valleys and moments of high positive G's. But it does not impact the ride experience for me one bit. In the back row, the rattle is noticeably stronger, and can get slightly annoying after a few rides, but it is not painful, and does not detract from the ride at all. In the front row, the rattle is able to be felt and is noticeable, but it's not annoying at all regardless of how many times I'm riding it in a row, and it does not detract from the ride experience whatsoever. Granted, this tight pullout after the Immelman definitely has the strongest rattle out of any other moment on the ride. The train then ascends up a second Immelman, but this time it has a lot tighter of a footprint than the first one, which results in a lot more lateral whip on the way out of it. In the front row, you don't feel much whip coming out of this Immelman, at least not yet. You will feel a little bit of lateral whip coming out of it in the back row though. It's not the strongest laterals out there, but it's still a nice moment of lateral whip. The train then goes through another tight valley with some more positive G's. Not as strong as the first one, but it still pulls some pretty good forces. The train then goes and ascends up into a funky element that I've never seen before, nor do I know what to call it. It's similar to a non-inverting loop, but it also inverts riders twice in the process. If you're sitting in the front row, you do get some amazing sustained laterals that will tip your entire body over to the right as the train reaches the top of the first part of this inversion. You do feel a slight dosage of laterals in the back, but nowhere near as good as in the front. During this moment of strong laterals, you will also feel your right thigh being pressed up against the restraint. Something else I do want to mention is that I am not the biggest fan of these restraints. They're not horrible, but it does make it a little bit hard to experience the insane airtime, hang time, and laterals this ride offers. I would say they are on par with the cylinders that sit across your lap on rides like Maverick and I-305. You still feel the airtime, but it can still get a bit tight on your thighs after a lot of rides in a row. It's not painful or anything. As the train goes into the second inverting part of this inversion, you will get fantastic sustained hang time as you flip upside down and start slowly descending down the inversion. I love how they place the magnetic brake so it stops the train right as it's exiting the inversion, because the slower the train exits the inversion, the longer hang time you'll get, and they sure did a great job designing that part. This is the one part of the ride that is actually better in the back, because the hang time is a lot longer in the back, because the back of the train takes longer to come down due to where the magnetic brakes are placed. The train slowly moves back into the station, and here comes the part of the ride that Sandy's Blasting Bronco is known for, the turntable. This turntable turns the train all the way backwards, and now comes my second favorite part of the ride, the backwards launch. This is most people's favorite part of the ride, but I have another part in the backwards section that I prefer to the backwards launch that I will reveal later. But this is by far the strongest backwards launch I've ever experienced. It's overwhelming how forceful this launch is. Your body gets slammed forwards and it feels like the ride is trying to separate your upper body from the rest of your body. If you put your hands up, it also enhances the sensation. This backwards launch is by far Intamin's best LSM launch out there. I'm not really going to analyze each element all over again for the backward section, because whichever element was more powerful in a certain row, the roles are now reversed. Whatever was more powerful in the front row in the forward section is now more powerful in the back row on the backward section. Whatever element was more powerful in the back during the forward section, it will now be more powerful in the front during the backward section. Except for the fact that there is one exception, which is absolutely my favorite part of the ride. Remember when I said that you get a decent amount of whip as the train exits the second Immelman? Well, this time if you're sitting in the front row, it turns from decent lateral whip into downright insane lateral whip. This is even more violent than the switchback turns in I-305 and Maverick. It is that good. What's interesting is that this violent whip is only able to be felt on the right side of the seat and in the front row. On the left side of the seat, you cannot feel it even one bit, and neither can you in any of the back seats, left or right. This is definitely the most seat-dependent element I've ever seen. The only other example I could think of where an element had stronger power depending on which side of the train you sat in was the wave turn on Iron Gwazi on the left side of the train. But not even that is a huge difference, and the wave turn was still able to be felt on the right side of the train. But that is not the case on Sandy's Blasting Bronco. If you're sitting on the left side of the train, you will not feel anything going out of this Immelman, but if you're sitting on the right side of the train, oh forget it. You're in for one of the most insane elements on any roller coaster. As the train sharply banks to the left out of the element, your body will suddenly and violently be thrown to the right. This lateral whip is overwhelmingly strong, and regardless of how many times I've ridden Sandy's, this element still catches me off guard every single time. This moment is miles better if you put your hands up. During the times where I put my hands up on this moment, I literally felt like the ride was trying to knock me out of the train. This sharp lateral jolt also causes your right thigh to slam against the restraint, but at a weird angle. Most of the time, your thighs get slammed up against the restraint, but on this element, it's slammed against the restraint in a diagonal direction. This is by far the most violent lateral jolt I've ever felt on any roller coaster. Once again, there is not much more I need to cover in terms of the elements and sensations, because the roles of how each row will deliver a certain element are reversed from when the train was going forwards. Sandy's Blasting Bronco is unequivocally a front row ride, and it's not hard to see why based on what I said during my review. Every single element just delivers better in that row. The back has no pros to it, so I would not waste your time riding it in the back if I were you, unless you really want to experience the difference for yourself. Overall, Sandy's Blasting Bronco may have a small footprint, but he uses that small footprint to its full advantage. It has every aspect of a roller coaster that enthusiasts love, including strong airtime, whippy laterals, insane hang time, 2 insanely forceful launches, and strong doses of positive Gs. And it all manages to do that in one small footprint. Since Nickelodeon Universe is always so empty, me being able to marathon this thing all day without leaving my seat makes the high price tag of the park more than worth it in my opinion. So what score am I going to give Sandy's Blasting Bronco? I'm going to give it a 9.9 out of 10. And here's why. Like I said earlier, the rattle really doesn't detract from the ride experience at all, but the rattle in the back can get slightly annoying after a while, so that's why I'm giving it a 9.9. Other than that, this ride is fantastic in any department. Since I live close to the park, it's easy for me to get to Sandy's when it's open quite often, but for enthusiasts outside the area, I really wish you luck on being able to get this credit and experience this one-of-a-kind roller coaster. This ride is very bipolar, and opens and closes when you least expect it, so it might be hard for some of you that live far away to get over there and experience Sandy's. But if you see that it's been running consistently, don't hesitate to take a visit and experience this for yourselves. This coaster often gets overshadowed by other Intamin launch coasters such as Pantheon, Velocicoaster, and Maverick, and those are all better rides than Sandy's, but Sandy's Blasting Bronco is still nothing to sneeze at either.